Your brain, it doesn't know the difference between a real danger and an imagined one. Just doesn't. So when someone says something you take as an attack, your body reacts exactly as if a lion were about to pounce. Your heart pounds, your breathing gets shallow, your muscles clench. Blood drains from your logical brain and rushes to your limbs, getting you ready to either fight or run for your life. But here's the thing, there is no lion. There are only words, a look, a gesture. And yet, your body is at war. What if I told you that every time you get angry, you're swallowing poison and hoping the other person dies? What if I explained that the person who gets hurt the most when you're furious isn't the one who provoked you, but you? Allow me to share something I've learned after decades of studying the human mind, a truth modern science is finally confirming, something ancient masters knew over 2,000 years ago. Freedom isn't about changing the world. Freedom is about changing your mind. Picture this for a moment. You're driving. You're just calmly listening to music, thinking about your day, and suddenly someone cuts you off. No signal. Your first impulse is instant. You feel that surge of pure rage rising from your stomach to your throat. You want to lay on the horn, you want to scream, you want that person to know how incredibly stupid they've been. Sound familiar? Maybe it wasn't a driver. Maybe it was your partner who said something that cut you deep during an argument. Or your boss who criticized you unfairly in front of everyone. Or that passive-aggressive comment from a family member at dinner? Or even just the cashier at the supermarket moving too slow when you were in a hurry. We've all been there. We all know that feeling. But let me ask you this and be honest. After that moment of rage, after you exploded or just stewed on it for hours, did you feel any better? Was the problem solved? Did anything actually change? Or were you just left with this hollow, exhausted feeling, like something inside you had broken? According to recent studies, a staggering 84% of people report feeling more irritated and angry than ever before. 84%. We are living in an epidemic of anger. We're walking through life like ticking time bombs, just waiting for something, or someone, to set us off. And the craziest part? The most telling part is that we believe our anger is justified. We are certain we have a right to be furious. We believe the problem is out there with everyone else. But the truth is so much deeper and so much more freeing. The problem isn't what happens to you. The problem is how you respond to what happens to you. For 26 years I was a surgeon. I specialized in general and digestive surgery, operated in prestigious hospitals, trained at Harvard. I had the knowledge, the technique, the reputation, but I was missing something. Inner peace. I remember days when a simple administrative mistake would make me lose my mind. A secretary messing up an appointment, a procedure delayed for a missing form, people wasting my time, one of our most precious resources, and it would make me furious. I could feel that rage just boiling in my chest, clouding my judgment, robbing me of my serenity. Until one day, a patient asked me a question that changed my life. He was an elderly man facing a complex surgery. I was late to our meeting because of a scheduling error someone else had made. I walked into the room and you could feel the irritation coming off me, the tension was still in my shoulders. He looked at me with a serenity that just threw me off and he asked, "Doctor, why do you permit others to have authority over your peace?" I was speechless. In that moment I had no answer. But his words, they stayed with me. They echoed in my mind for days, weeks, months. Why did I let others control my peace? Why did I give away my power to external circumstances? Why was my emotional state dependent on whether someone else did their job right? So I started to watch myself. I began to study my own reactions with the same scientific curiosity I used to study the human body. And what I discovered amazed me. It wasn't other people's incompetence that was making me angry. It was my expectation that things should be different. It was my resistance to reality as it was. It was my ego screaming that I was right and they were wrong. It was, in short, my own mind that was torturing me. And if my mind was the problem, then my mind could also be the solution. Think about your own life for a second. How many times have you gotten angry because someone didn't meet your expectations? How many times have you argued just because someone saw things differently? That neighbor playing loud music? The corrupt politician on the news? The friend who canceled at the last minute? The person talking loudly in the movie theater? In all those cases, there's a common pattern. It's not what happened that made you angry. It's what you thought about what happened. It's your interpretation, your judgment, your internal story. Let me pull back the curtain on what's going on inside your head in that critical moment. Those 300 milliseconds that decide whether you explode or stay calm. Inside your skull, there's an ancient, primitive structure designed to keep you alive. It's called the amygdala. It's about the size of an almond, part of your emotional brain. The amygdala is your threat detector, constantly scanning for danger. And when it spots something it thinks is a threat, whether it's a lion or a sarcastic comment, it triggers your survival response. Instantly. Faster than you can blink. Your brain knows something is wrong. The amygdala sends out alarm signals. The hippocampus, your memory archive, searches for similar situations. The basal ganglia start generating those obsessive, looping thoughts, going over and over what just happened. And then comes the executive order. The hypothalamus, that little structure that controls your body chemistry, makes a decision: flight or fight. And with anger, it's almost always fight. Your body is flooded with dopamine, norepinephrine, vasopressin. Your heart races. Your blood pressure spikes. You are ready for battle. But here is the most crucial part. The part that changes everything. In this state, your prefrontal cortex, the most evolved, rational human part of your brain, goes completely offline. That's not a metaphor. It's pure physiology. When your amygdala hijacks your system, your ability to think clearly vanishes. Your emotional intelligence goes out the window. It is biologically impossible to have a rational conversation when you are seething. Your logical brain literally cannot function. And yet, in that state we make decisions. We say things. We act in ways we later regret. How many times have you said something in an argument you didn't really mean, something you would never say in a calm moment? That's your amygdala talking, not you. It's why they say anger makes us honest, but it's a selfish, unfiltered honesty without empathy. It's the honesty of survival. But hold on. I have to share something with you that science has discovered, and it completely flips the script on what we've been told for decades. For years we were told to vent, to get it all out. That punching a pillow or screaming in your car was cathartic. That we needed to release that negative energy. Science says the exact opposite. Professor Brad Bushman ran some fascinating experiments. He had angry people hit a punching bag while thinking about why they were mad. The result? They got even angrier. The people who hit the bag but thought about something else like getting in shape felt less angry. And the ones who did nothing at all? They calmed down the fastest. Bushman's conclusion is powerful. In his words, expressing anger is like using gasoline to put out a fire. Every time you vent, every time you explode, you're not releasing anger. You're feeding it. You're reinforcing it. You're teaching your brain that this is the right response. You're building a destructive habit. Because anger has a cost. A real, measurable, scientific cost. Physically, it damages your heart, increases your risk of stroke, and weakens your immune system. It literally makes you age faster. Mentally, it traps you in loops of rumination. For 4 hours, that's the average time your brain stays hijacked by an intense emotion. 4 hours where your mental energy is held hostage by something you can't change. And relationally, this is the most bitter irony. A 75-year Harvard study, the longest ever on human happiness, found the #1 predictor of a happy, healthy life. It wasn't money. It wasn't fame. It was the quality of your relationships. And chronic anger destroys them. Every outburst damages trust, creates wounds, and puts your most precious bonds at risk. Anger isolates you. Isolation makes you unhappy. It's a perfect vicious cycle. You get angry, which damages your relationships, which makes you feel lonely, which makes you more irritable. Until one day you realize you're trapped. Trapped in a prison you built yourself. A prison of judgments, expectations, and resistance. But there is a key to that prison. A key that has existed for thousands of years. But before I give it to you, you have to truly grasp this fundamental truth, the one that changed my life. Anger is not something that is done to you. It is something you create. Let me say that again because your freedom is in this sentence. Anger is not something they do. It's something you do. No one can make you angry without your consent. No one has that power unless you give it to them. I know. Right now that might sound absurd. You're thinking of all the times someone genuinely made you furious, that it was their fault, that any reasonable person would have been angry. And you're right about one thing. Anyone who thinks exactly like you would have been angry. But there are people who think differently. People who face the same provocations, the same injustices, and they remain calm. Not because they're weak, but because they understand something profound about the mind. Let me take you to ancient Greece, to a man named Epictetus. He was born a slave. He spent his youth in chains, abused, treated like an object. His owner, in a fit of cruelty, shattered his leg, leaving him lame for life. And yet, this man became one of the wisest, most serene, most free philosophers who ever lived. How could a man who was tortured and had lost everything find peace? Epictetus discovered that while he couldn't control what happened to his body, he could control how his mind responded. he discovered the dichotomy of control. There are things you can control and things you can't. Your thoughts, your interpretations, your decisions. Those are yours. No one can take them. Everything else? The actions of others, the past, the future, traffic, politics. All of it is outside your control. And here is the key to the prison. All your suffering, all your anger, comes from trying to control what you cannot, and forgetting to control what you can. You get angry because your partner doesn't listen, but you can't make them listen. You can only control how you communicate. You get angry because your boss doesn't value your work, but you can't make them value it. You can only control the quality of your work. You get angry because someone insults you, but you can't control their words. You can only control your interpretation. Epictetus used to tell his students, go stand next to a rock and insult it. Yell at it. Offend it. What happened? The students would answer, nothing. Exactly, Epictetus would say. If you respond to insults like a rock, what has the attacker gained? Nothing. The power of an insult isn't in the words. It's in your reaction. If you choose to be like a rock, you are untouchable. And maybe you're thinking, but I'm not a rock. I'm a human with emotions. You're right. This isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about something deeper, choice. You're going to feel that first flash of irritation. That's your amygdala doing its job. But between that initial impulse and your response, there is a space. A sacred space. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor, said it perfectly. Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. They took everything from Frankl in the concentration camps. His family, his home, his dignity. But they could not take his ability to choose his response. And in that he found his freedom. Now your life might not be so dramatic. You're probably not in a concentration camp. But you are in a prison. The prison of your own mind. Every time you let someone make you angry, you hand them the keys to your cell. You give them the power to decide if you have a good day or a bad day. Do you really want to give that power to a stranger in traffic? To an internet troll? Does that person deserve to control your heart? Psychologist Ryan Martin says anger has 3 phases. The event, your interpretation, and your reaction. The problem is we think our interpretation is the absolute truth. But it's not. It's just a story. Another psychologist, Gregory Kusnik, found that perpetually angry people often have a moral teacher syndrome. They feel it's their job to correct the world. The slow driver, the inefficient cashier, the person who thinks differently, they all need to be taught a lesson. But the world isn't going to change just because you're angry. The antidote? Perspective. Empathy. Reframing. That person who cut you off? Maybe they're rushing to the hospital. Maybe they just got terrible news. Maybe they just made a mistake like we all do. You don't know their story. When you change your interpretation, your emotion changes automatically. You are literally changing your brain chemistry. But there's something even deeper. Spiritual. Years ago, I had a 70-year-old patient with a terminal illness. He had every reason to be angry at the world. But he was always serene. I asked him how. He looked at me with these wise eyes and said, "Doctor, I learned long ago that being angry at reality is like being angry at the rain. You can scream at the sky, but it's still going to rain. The question is, are you going to stand there getting wet and furious? Or are you going to find an umbrella?" He said, "This illness is my rain. I didn't choose it. But I can choose to accept it and live in peace." He chose peace. He taught me what the Stoics called amor fati, a love of fate. A radical acceptance of what is. As the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, how much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it. He knew that anger was a poison he drank himself. It's as Epictetus said, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. Do you really want to have so many masters? I know a part of you might be resisting this. I'm not saying injustice doesn't exist or that you shouldn't set boundaries. I'm saying you can be strong without being reactive. True strength isn't in the explosion. It's in staying calm when everything is tempting you to lose it. And you can train your brain to do this. Neuroscience shows that practices like meditation literally thicken your prefrontal cortex and shrink your reactive amygdala. You are rewiring your default response. Where you once exploded, you now pause. Where you once reacted, you now respond. Where you were a slave to your anger, you become free. But it takes practice. It's like learning an instrument. It's clumsy at first, but with daily effort, it becomes natural. It becomes who you are. Imagine moving through the world with that kind of freedom. That is true freedom. Not controlling the world, but controlling your inner world. When you have that, nothing and no one can touch you. Beyond psychology, there is a spiritual truth here. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the consciousness that observes all of it. And from that space you have the power to choose. When someone insults you, it's their pain, their confusion. You can choose not to accept their poison gift. Remember the Buddhist monk? A man screamed at him, insulted him. The monk just listened. Afterwards, his disciples asked why he didn't defend himself. He smiled. If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong? The man offered his anger. The monk chose not to accept it. Perhaps you've been accepting gifts you never asked for. You can set them down. Right now. I know it's hard in the heat of the moment. That's why you need a method. A practical process. Here it is. 1. Self-awareness. Learn to recognize the early signs, the clenched jaw, the heat in your chest, the shallow breath. That's your window of opportunity. Just notice it. That simple act creates space. 2. The sacred pause. When you feel it rising, stop. Don't speak. Don't act. Just breathe. 3. Deep, slow breaths. This manually deactivates the fight or flight response and brings your rational brain back online. This is the moment you choose to be responsive, not reactive. 3. Reframe. Ask yourself, is this in my control? If not, your job is to accept it. Change the narrative. Instead of, he made me angry, try, I am choosing to feel angry. Instead of, this shouldn't be happening, try, this is happening. How can I respond wisely? 4. Virtuous action. Now that you're calm, act from your values, not your ego. Ask, what would the best version of myself do right now? Maybe it's communicating a boundary firmly. Maybe it's walking away. Maybe it's just letting it go. You act from strength, not reaction. Practice this in the small moments, the spilled coffee, the interruption. Those are your training grounds. The Stoics would practice negative visualization every morning, imagining what could go wrong so they wouldn't be surprised. They had already chosen their response. And there's one last piece to this puzzle. And honestly, this one can be tough to hear. That which irritates you in others exists within you. I know. Your mind is probably screaming, no way. But stay with me. The intensity of your emotional reaction always reveals something about you. If someone's arrogance infuriates you, ask yourself, where does that live in me? Or where do I fear being seen as arrogant? If their laziness drives you crazy, ask, where do I judge my own need for rest? Every irritation is an invitation to know yourself better, to heal something within. This is what Jung called the shadow. You see it in others, but in reality it's yours. And the only way to be free is to integrate it, to accept that you, too, are capable of that weakness. Only what you accept can be transformed. There's a Buddhist practice of loving kindness. You send wishes for peace and happiness to yourself, to a loved one, to a neutral person, and finally to your enemy. The first time I tried it, it felt absurd. Why would I wish happiness on someone who hurt me? Then I understood. You're not doing it for them. You're doing it for you. As long as you hold on to hate, you are the one in chains. Forgiveness is not for them, it's for you. It means you release the poison. You let go of the burden. You give yourself permission to be free. I once asked a spiritual teacher, what is the fastest path to enlightenment? I expected some complex, secret answer. He just smiled and said, stop arguing with reality. That's it. Stop insisting things should be different. Accept what is, with wisdom. And from that peace you can act. Not from reactive anger that consumes you, but from an active love that expands you. Gandhi, King, Mandela, they didn't change the world through anger. They changed it through a love and a vision that was stronger than their resentment. They mastered their emotions. They found that love, not hate, is the most powerful force in the universe. Hate destroys, love builds. Hate divides, love unites. Hate poisons the one who feels it. Love heals the one who gives it. So, how do you put this into practice today? Let me offer you a path. Every morning before the chaos starts, take just 5 minutes. Sit in silence. Breathe. And set an intention. Today I will choose peace over anger. Today I will respond, not react. Today I will see the human being in everyone I encounter.